The reason I stand before you today is to make the presentation of now a formal proposal that is out for public comment to modify the consent decree that is currently entered with the court to resolve the combined sewer overflow problem that Washington, D.C. has, by the way, as do 750 other cities in the United States. And we are now ready to accept, not ready, willing, able, enthusiastic, encouraging a review, comment, we hope support for the proposal that I'm about to describe. We have a solid proposal. I will present it to you now. It is not the final word on what could be the ultimate project, because that will be subject to all the comments we get in that we'll evaluate. Like I said, we are also hoping that there'll be significant support. You will always hear DC Water describe this as the Clean Rivers Project. We did that because the long-term control plan is the technical name. Any city that has a combined sewer problem must enter into a program called a long-term control plan to resolve that problem. That is the technical term, but it was our sense on staff that folks who are not really keyed in won't know what a long-term control plan is. You could have a long-term control plan for anything. So we wanted to title it for what the ultimate objective is, which is the Clean Rivers Project, because that's why we're doing the long-term control plan. The conversation about it started in 1998. I actually was an EPA lawyer in Boston when this was going on. We had a final long-term control plan in 2002. We had a determination that it meets water quality standards in 2003, and the consent decree signed in 2005. That is a 20-year consent decree. So we are already now between years 7 and 8 of that consent decree. So we're long into it, and on time and on budget for every step that is required under the consent decree. One of the messages that I will deliver is we are proposing to change the consent decree. Ultimately, it is not up to DC Water or even the district government to unilaterally decide whether the consent decree should be changed. If it is not changed, we will satisfy the obligations of the existing decree. This is not an effort to get out or duck or any obligation. We are on time, on budget. The only changes we've made to commitments in the 2005 consent decree is to accelerate them, not to put them back, which I'll describe in a moment. The salmon color is the part of the city that is combined sewers. So that is the part of the city where the sewer under the street is taking the sanitary flow from every building and is also taking the storm drains coming off the street into the same pipe. When it was designed, it was vastly better than what was true at the time, which was untreated waste going through open canals, actually paralleling the Constitution Avenue where it is now, in a manner that's hard to imagine. So while today combined sewers are like, oh my God, why would anyone do it? Relative to what was before, this was state of the art. But all the salmon areas where those pipes take both stormwater and sewage. The problem, obviously, is that in any major storm, and in some of these relatively non-major storms, the stormwater flows into that pipe. It's sort of like a movie where you see someone underground for whatever reason, and then a storm hits and all the water pours in. That's exactly what happens. And at some point, the pipe fills. And when that pipe is filled, you've got a variety of options, none of which are good. The flow can go back where it came from, backing up into bathrooms, onto streets, or you allow overflow to go to the rivers. That's by design, not by accident. Now here is the existing plan. As I have said, if we do not change, if there's not a consensus that we change the consent decree, we will build this plan, and we will build it, at least as far as we can, on time. The biggest part of this plan is the tunnel that starts down at Blue Plains, comes up the Potomac, takes a right turn going into the Anacostia, Poplar Point. This is the main and O pump station. You all know it by the Nationals ballpark. There's a second, that tunnel is being built today. The tunnel machine is underground. Go at dcwater.com, go on our YouTube page. You can see a video. I went down and visited it. It is breathtaking in its size and scope, and one of the coolest days I've ever had in a job was going down into the tunnel on the train as it's making its way up the Potomac. The tunnel boring machine is a football field and a third in length. It is gigantic, and it is now boring its way up under the Potomac. A second tunnel machine will start up by RFK Stadium and bore its way back down, meeting here. So if you like the two train lines meeting from the east and the west, And then a third one will proceed into the city. This is Bloomingdale and LeDroit Park. So we're actually going to solve both internal city CSOs and river-based. And this problem has been around for 100 years. So this project is going to solve a flooding problem that the city has had for a century. Very important, I think all of you know this. Our proposal that I'll be detailing in a moment does not change this project at all. We are going to build it. The only way we have changed this project is to accelerate it. This piece up here at the top, that's called the First Street Tunnel, that is being built by 2016. It wouldn't have been finished till 2025. Then there are two smaller tunnels. There's one that's a little harder to see in yellow. That's the Georgetown Tunnel, Potomac. It goes from just south of the Kennedy Center to just north of Key Bridge. It is a wider tunnel than the one we're building under the Anacostia, which is 23 feet. My recollection is the one on the Potomac is 34 feet. So it is a huge, I mean, it's probably bigger than the ceiling, but that's how big this tunnel is going to be. And it's one of the issues I will mention. We are determined to be on time and on budget for anything we agree to do. I am very nervous about our schedule for this project because the Park Service has required us to do an environmental impact statement, which we were not originally anticipating. And there's been a lot of reservations, understandably, about the scale of construction that will be needed along the Georgetown waterfront, including those beautiful new parks that we probably have all been to. Then there's a third, smaller tunnel here. That's on the Piney, we call it the Piney Branch Tunnel. It's the smallest of the three. And so that's the whole 2005 consent decree. One very important thing to mention is that we've already achieved a lot of benefits to the rivers already. What you see in this chart is by 2013, which is red, 1996 in blue, is how much reduction in CSOs we have already seen based on the steps we've already taken. The first series of steps we took were really sort of cleaning up our operations. Pump stations, we have inflatable dams, there's all sorts of steps that could be taken essentially with the existing system to make it more efficient. And that's how we were able to get pretty significant reductions at relatively low cost. But we essentially have done all of those now. And the only way we're going to get additional reductions of CSO is to build brand new infrastructure that can capture just a whole nother scale of stormwater. The proposed plan, so now we get to the moment. And what we had been describing from the beginning, this has been the same since where we were 2.5 years ago. This was always something we were open to, is right now we essentially have a gray proposal. And I don't mean gray in a bad way. Some have taken it that way. Gray is just because of the color of concrete. It was why gray was it's not meant to be because it's uninteresting. It's actually darn fascinating when you go down and see the construction of these tunnels. But it's a tunnel solution. It's building underground, gray infrastructure, heavy steel, heavy concrete, sort of the old-fashioned system. And that's pretty much what we have. We are almost entirely solving the CSO problem in this city using tunnels, the three that I have mentioned. The green solution, Philadelphia has gone with an almost all green solution. They have a little bit of gray, but theirs is almost entirely green. The question is there some hybrid in between that takes the benefits of one and the benefits of the other and melds them into a solution that in our judgment is better than either one alone? Essentially the question we face as the one on the consent decree responsible for the work is controlling stormwater. The pipes are fine for conveying sanitary flow. That's never been the issue. The issue is how to handle all the stormwater that also pours into those pipes. We have currently a gray that will take it down to even deeper, larger pipes and handle it that way. Green infrastructure is the same idea. We don't have to control the stormwater underground if we can control it on the surface before it ever gets to the storm drain in the first place. Here's the proposal. And the manner in which it's changed is that we're still planning, I'll just cut to the chase. We had previously discussed removing Piney Branch and doing green infrastructure. That is still our proposal. We would eliminate entirely the Piney Branch Tunnel and replace it with green infrastructure in the watershed that drains to that part of the Piney Branch. And our proposal is to spend $60 million on green infrastructure in this part to contain stormwater that otherwise would have been managed in the tunnel. Where we have changed the proposal and where we heard the most comment was what we're doing along the Potomac. Originally, we were going to try to take out the entire Potomac tunnel, which is very large, and seek to put in enough green infrastructure in the area that drains to it. And it's a larger area than you would think, because actually there's a lot of conveyance lines that take stormwater down to the overflows that are along the Potomac. And do green infrastructure to try to eliminate the tunnel. The challenge that was presented to us was, could we ever do enough green infrastructure to capture that much stormwater by itself? So what we're proposing instead is not to eliminate the entire tunnel, but to do a tunnel starting just south, so essentially the bottom portion of the tunnel. So we still will be building a tunnel, which will allow us to, those are where the largest CSO overflow quantities are. So you still have a tunnel portion, but we aren't going to build a significant piece of it to the north. By the way, that's also where that brand new park is, which we think will actually make this more approvable over time than the alternative. And we're going to do a variety. Part of this we're going to separate. We actually are going to do a separation project to take stormwater and out of the sanitary flow. And part of it will be green infrastructure in the Georgetown vicinity, a combination of both. So from 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, that's a set of where the pipe would have been, and you'd have drop shafts that would have gone down and been constructed to get the flow down to the big tunnel. That will be eliminated. For 2 of them, it will be separation. For 3 of them, it will be green infrastructure. $30 million for green, $10 million for separation. You can add all it up and see it's a $100 million proposal.